You may wonder why I don't stop and lead us in the motivation before every session. Actually, when we're chanting the prayers, we are generating our motivation. So it isn't always necessary to lead you in one, but it's up to us when we're chanting to focus on the motivation when we are reciting that. Yeah, and have that bodhicitta motivation. Yeah. Otherwise it says, may I become enlightened for the benefit of sentient beings. You know? So try to think about what we're saying. Okay, so when we were in this first section here, when he's talking about if you cling to this life, you are not a practitioner. And there he talks specifically about ethical conduct, study, reflection, and meditation. Okay? Now, the things he was talking specifically about are already Dharma activities, aren't they? So he's talking about if you're doing Dharma activities, how not to have them get waylaid by clinging to the happiness of this life. Not having ourselves getting distracted by the 8 worldly concerns when doing Dharma activities. He does not even begin to talk about the whole rest of our life and how that is involved with the 8 worldly concerns. Isn't that interesting? Already just in this text there's the assumption that we are Dharma practitioners. Isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But because a lot of people, ethical concern, not on their radar, study, reflection, meditation, not on their radar. So he's already talking to people who are practitioners. Okay? When we look at our lives, how much time do we spend practicing and how much time do we spend doing other things? And are our other things in any way related to the Dharma, in a way that they could be considered practice, or are our other activities just totally lost in, attachment to the happiness of this life? So that's a bigger question that he's not even asking us, or maybe implicitly asking us. Okay? So, what about your job? What's your motivation for working? Do you have a Dharma motivation? What about eating? Is it a neutral act or do you convert it into virtue? Yeah, by generating a good motivation. What about your social life? What's the, motivation for that? What about reading the newspaper or, surfing online? Is there a Dharma motivation, or is it all the happiness of only this life? Okay, so that's something for us to look at and examine in our own lives, yeah? Because we have a precious human life with all the conditions necessary to practice, and it doesn't last forever. So it's important to really pay attention to what we do with our time, because our time is the most valuable thing that we have, in terms of creating virtue and abandoning non-virtue. And what we take with us at the end of our life is our Dharma practice, is the karma that we've created. So everything else stays behind here. Yeah? So all your degrees, they're still hanging on the wall after you die, and now somebody has to figure out what to do with them. Yeah, what do you think people are going to do with your degrees, your trophies, your awards? Yeah. Probably takes the sheet of papers out, recycle them, give the frames to Goodwill. Yeah? What about all of our souvenirs that we couldn't bear to part with because they reminded us of so many wonderful episodes in our life? Yeah? Those souvenirs that, when you have an estate sale, you put a really high price on them because they're of so much sentimental value to you, and somebody else comes up and goes, Have you noticed that? Yeah? It's kind of like when you're trying to sell a house, it has so much sentimental value for you, so the price is way up there, and other people come in and go, that's wrong, and this, and it isn't worth what you're charging. And you go, what do you mean? It's worth more than what I'm charging. Huh? So, to kind of pay some attention to that. All the things that we pay so much attention to in our life, what happens to them when we die? Yeah? That means somebody else is going to go through all of your clothes. Yeah? They'll see how many clothes you have and what kind of clothes you have. And they'll throw them all in the pile for Goodwill. Yeah? So all those things that you thought were so fantastic, yeah, are all the things you decorate your house with. Yeah, then when your kids or your relatives or whoever takes it over comes in, what are they going to do with all the junk? Yeah, are they going to treasure it as much as you did? Can you take any of it with you? You die clutching your baseball bat, Does it go with you? No. Maybe they put the baseball bat in your coffin with you, but it doesn't come with you. But it has so much sentimental value. It was in the family for generations. It's real interesting, isn't it? The thing that we think are so precious that nobody else cares about. My parents had made, when my brother and I were very little, the 2 photographs that were blown up, and framed, So he must have been 2 and I was 5, something like that. So everywhere they lived, these 2 blown up photographs of us were on the wall. My sister came along later, so she didn't get one. I think she may have felt left out. But so these went everywhere. Yeah. So my dad just recently died. Those photographs are still hanging in the room. Now, what's going to happen to them? Yeah. I think my niece may want the one of my brother. I don't think she'll want the one of me. Can you imagine? Yeah. But how can you throw out something that is 59 years old and has always been on the wall of your parents' bedroom, even though you don't want it? Somebody should want it, but nobody wants it. Well, maybe you do now after this pitch. Yeah, but it's true, isn't it? What we cling to that isn't worth much. Okay, so, to look at the rest of our life and what is our intention going on in the rest of our lives, and how do the 8 worldly concerns jump in there? Okay, because he was talking specifically about Dharma-related activities and how they get corrupted by attachment to only the happiness of this life. what about everything else? Yeah. I remember when we were choosing the fabric, for this, and the color for this. I wasn't here when they chose the carpeting, you can tell that. But how everybody has different opinions, and then you think, okay, I'm trying to pick the most beautiful color for the benefit of all sentient beings. Most beautiful color, of course, is the one I like. Yeah. And since all sentient beings are going to see that curtain after this, and it's going to arise inspiration in their minds because it's the right color. Right? So therefore I have to hang on to my view of the color of the curtain and the fabric of the curtain. I think on this one most of us agreed, huh? That was before your time? Yeah. But then we had to decide what color to paint the walls and the ceiling. And even after they were painted, what color they were. Yeah. Are those walls peach or are they pink? And it depends what time of day you look at them. And this became a very important topic. So, because if they're pink, you can't paint the walls in the men's dorm with pink, but you can paint them peach. Anyway, I think you're getting, my what I'm trying to say here. Yeah. Okay. So just something else to think about. When we read that line, yeah, if you cling to this life, you are not a practitioner. Yeah, a lot of meaning in that line. Then the second line was where we got up to yesterday. Second line, if you cling to the three realms, that is not renunciation. So remember the three realms, desire, form, and formless realms? Okay. And so we were on the verses, the verse that says, to seek nirvana, the state beyond sorrow, relinquish clinging to the three realms. Okay, to relinquish clinging to the three realms, reflect on the defects of cyclic existence. Okay, so clinging to the three realms, that means that we want to be reborn in cyclic existence. Yeah, that we think cyclic existence is, as Tsongkhapa says, a pleasure grove. Yeah, that cyclic existence is the best life has to offer. And so we want to take another rebirth. Now, intellectually, we may say, no, I don't want to take another rebirth. But what happens when our life is threatened? We cling to our life. We cling to this body. And if we can't have this body, we're going to take another one. Okay? So that's clinging to cyclic existence, because we are clinging to one rebirth or another, one kind of body or another in cyclic existence. Okay, so if we have the karma to be born, let's say in the hell realm or hungry ghost realm or animal realm, when that, as we're dying, if that karma is ripening, then the body in that realm looks very appealing. Yeah, and we seek it out. We want to take rebirth there until we're reborn there. And then it the whole thing changes. Okay? That's why they say be careful of what you want because you might get it. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if you know, they say, like, if you're very, very cold when you're dying and you're craving heat, then that craving of heat makes if you have the karma to be reborn in the hell realm, it makes the hot hells look quite pleasant. Yeah? If you're too hot when you're dying and you're craving cool, then your karmic vision makes the cold hells look very pleasurable. Okay, of course, once you take rebirth there, it's awful. Okay, but all this happens because we're clinging to having an ego identity, and having a body is a big part of having an ego identity, isn't it? You know, so much when we say, I am, fill in the blank has something to do with our body. And having a body, you know, differentiates us from other beings and establishes us as an individual. Yeah, we all want to be individuals, don't we? Mm-hmm. So this kind of thing happens. In the form realm, the craving that comes up at the time of death there is, let's say that you have done a lot of meditation on shamatha or serenity. You've attained serenity and you've attained some level, because in the form realm there's what's called the 4 concentrations, and there's different celestial beings that live in these 4 levels of concentration. If we attain any of those levels of concentration while we're a human being, then at the time of death, what comes up very much is the craving to be reborn in that concentration as our next life. Yeah. So this is why they always say, if you're going to develop deep concentration, it's very important also to meditate on renunciation for samsara. Because if we don't meditate on renunciation of all of cyclic existence, then we may attain this level of samadhi, and at the time of death crave for rebirth in that level of concentration. And there we go. We're born there, we live there for a period of time. When the karmic energy for that rebirth is over, then some negative karma ripens and we fall down into the desire realm. Okay. So when we talked about the desire realm, the form and formless realms, you're born there because of attaining different levels of concentration. Yeah. The form realm levels of concentration are very sublime, but you don't have a gross body like we do. They have a subtler body, yeah. But the meditation brings you so much bliss that there's craving to be reborn there. So if you haven't generated renunciation, if there's no bodhicitta, if there's no wisdom realizing emptiness, then you can attain those high levels in a human body, and at the time of death you get reborn there. Or in the formless realm where they don't have a human body, yeah, still that level of concentration is even deeper and more it hooks you even more, okay? And so possible there to get reborn in those states, in the formless realm absorptions, stay there for eons. But then when that karma to be reborn there finishes, kerplunk, down we fall into the lower, into the desire realm again. Okay? So that's why it says, we have to relinquish clinging to the 3 realms, because as long as we're craving for some rebirth in samsara, with attachment because we think it's going to bring us happiness, because we're terrified of not having a body or not having an identity, then we'll get what we're clinging and craving. Yeah, but it just keeps us cycling in samsara again and again and again with no respite. Okay? So that's why, in addition to overcoming the 8 worldly concerns that keep our mind fixated only on the happiness of this life, we need to see the disadvantages of all of the different realms in cyclic existence and develop renunciation for all of them. Okay. When we say the word renunciation, it doesn't mean renouncing pleasure. It means renouncing dukkha. Okay? Dukkha is a Sanskrit Pali word that means something akin to unsatisfactory. Yeah, it doesn't cut it. It's the word that is often translated as suffering, but suffering is a very misleading translation because beings in the upper realms have all this samsaric pleasure, and if you say, are they suffering, most beings there would say no. Okay, it's only from the perspective of an Arya being, somebody who has realized emptiness directly, who would look at that level of experience and say that is suffering, because an Arya realizes that there's much higher states of mind that are more refined, more in line with reality, more free or freer, less obstructed. Okay, but when we don't have that knowledge of, those other possibilities, when we don't know about nirvana or anything like that, then the pleasures of these other realms seems very, very good. Yeah? It's like when you're poor, you look at the people in Hollywood and Beverly Hills and you say, oh, if only I could be born there, then I would be really happy. I would have everything I always wanted. Yeah. So they crave for that kind of rebirth in Hollywood and Beverly Hills. They get reborn there. What kind of life do you think people in Hollywood and in Beverly Hills have? Do they live happily ever after? No. Yeah, there's a lot of suffering in those realms. They may have a lot of material wealth. But in terms of actual happiness, not so much. Yeah. Very often, when in families with a lot of money, then the children are often left to supervise themselves because both parents are busy working. Yeah. Or the kids are bored and they get into drugs. Or one of the parents is having an affair. Or they have so much money and then the stock market changes and kerplunk. Yeah. So even you have those what's called very fortunate rebirths in terms of a human being, it's not at all stable. So the same thing with, having a rebirth in an upper realm in samsara, it's really nice for a while, but it's not stable. And we're not out of the cycle because our mind is still influenced by ignorance, and so still having craving for different rebirths in samsara. Okay? Is this making some sense to you? Yeah? Or are you going, that's not what they taught me in school. They taught me middle-class America was supreme happiness. Well, not maybe middle class, upper class. I want to be part of that 1%. Yeah, that owns what percent of the wealth? 1% owns 80% of the wealth. Yeah, I want to be part of that. When I have my 3 swimming pools and the cinema in my own house, yeah, and I have, all the computers I want and all the entertainment I want, then I'll be happy. Are those people really happy? Yeah? Can everything they have prevent them from aging, sickness, and death? No. And also, they have a whole set of problems that ordinary people don't have. Because they have a lot of relatives that they didn't know about, who all happen to need a loan. Yeah? Okay, so here, we're going to really enlarge our perspective and look at all of cyclic existence. Okay? So when we talk about the upper realms, it might be helpful to know a little bit about them. So there's the first, second, third, and fourth concentration. That's how they're labeled. There's different levels of gods that live in these different concentrations. I think the Brahma gods live in the first concentration, and then, different levels of gods going on up. And they have very pleasant lives, because they have meditative equipoise, very beautiful environments. Yeah, it's really kind of quite gorgeous where they are.
In the sutras, when we talk about a god appearing, gives offering and whatever, they are from this place?
If it's a god like Sakra, Indra, Brahma, yeah, then it's from these realms of the concentrations. Yeah. Okay. So they have their little societies, and people talk to each other and things like that. Okay. It's very interesting when they talk about Brahma, because in Hindu, the Hindu idea is Brahma is the creator of the world. Okay. And according to the Buddhist legend of creation, Brahma thinks that because in the evolution of the universe, Brahma was here first. Then other beings came later, so Brahma said, well, I must have created them. Yeah? So maybe the idea of a Christian God belongs right there in that first concentration together with Brahma. I don't know. Okay. Then, and the meditation as you go through these 4 concentrations, gets more and more sublime, more and more peaceful. Yeah, much, much deeper concentration. When you start going into the formless realms, the first formless realm is the sphere of what is it? Nothingness? Space. Yeah, it's the sphere of space. So you gained the concentrations in the form realm by focusing on an object of meditation. It might be the figure of the Buddha. It might be the early sutras talk about kasinas, which are, like a circle of a particular color or a particular element, something like that. So there's one object that you gain serenity on. Yeah, and that's your object of meditation, and that's your object for meditation when you do the 4 form realms. When you go between the form realm and the first formless realm into the the base of emptiness, at the base of space, is where your object was before. You're now eliminating that object and just perceiving the infinity of space. Yeah. So instead of having an object with different attributes, which in a way could be a little bit quote, quote, busy, now it's just one thing, space. Yeah. And that's your object of meditation. And that's what you stay meditating on for eons. Okay? If you go up another one, what you do, the meditator does, is they take away space as the object of the meditation. And now the object of meditation becomes the consciousness that was meditating on space. So now their object is infinite consciousness. Just the infinity of consciousness. That's what you're focusing on single-pointedly. If you deepen your concentration even more and go to the third formless absorption, that one's called nothingness. So there you take away the consciousness that was meditating, and you meditate just on nothingness. Yeah, uniform, peaceful nothingness. Then you go up to the highest one, the peak of samsara, and that's called neither discrimination nor non-discrimination. In other words, you can't, those beings, it's very hard to tell if they even have a mind or don't have a mind, because their mind is so, refined, so subtle. No ability to discriminate. Okay? So you're born, in those realms as very, very wonderful, so they say. They say when you develop samadhi, it can be really addictive, kind of better than opioids, better than heroin, better than oxycodone. Am I saying it right? Yeah. So, and you just get totally hooked by those. And that's why it's very important to meditate on renunciation and bodhicitta and wisdom, so we don't get hooked. Yeah. Okay, but if we're really going to develop renunciation, we have to see the disadvantages of all of those different kinds of rebirth in cyclic existence, And the main disadvantage is that all of them are taken under the influence of ignorance. Okay? So just when we hear the word ignorance, it has a not very nice feeling to it, does it? Yeah? So if we take rebirth under the influence of ignorance, it's already, it's not going to be a good show. Yeah, because the mind wasn't clear, the mind wasn't wise. As soon as there's ignorance, there's craving. As soon as there's craving, we're grasping, then there's going to be discontent. There's going to be unhappiness. Because a mind that is attached, a mind that's craving, is not a peaceful, relaxed, content mind. It's all, we all know craving. You know craving? What's the mind of craving like? Is it a pleasant mind? Yeah. You think when you get the object you're craving that that's real pleasure. Yeah, but all that's happening when we get the object of craving is that the craving is going from big to small. But it hasn't been completely eliminated, because as soon as that we separate from that object or get bored from that object, then we're back craving something else. Yeah? Would you agree when you think about your life? Are you always craving, wanting something? Yeah? Discontent. I want this, I want that. I'm bored with this. What kind of new pleasure and happiness can I have? Always looking for something and trying one thing after another and not being satisfied with any of it. Yeah. That's called stupidity, isn't it? That we have that experience and we forget. Because our minds are so small. Our very small minds. So we don't think that the problem is craving. We think the problem is not getting the object of what we're craving. or we think the problem is being separated from the object we're craving. We don't really sit and look at the situation very clearly. And when we have a lousy experience, we don't remember it. We're like the mice, pecking. We're like the people at Vegas with the one-armed bandits. Again and again and again. And you've done this 100 times. You haven't gotten one single quarter. But you forgot that you've already put in $50 or however much you've put in, and that you haven't gotten anything out of it but a sore arm, and you keep putting your quarters in. Yeah? Thinking, this time will be different. Peck. You know, I'm gonna get the rice grain this time. Peck. Yeah. Parking lot. Yeah.
It's intermittent reinforcement. Once in a while you do get something.
Mm-hmm.
That's the worst. You know, it doesn't matter if it's a little, but that's what hurts.
Yeah. But you know, when we say we're overcome by ignorance, there's many levels of ignorance. And you just hit on one of the big ignorances that keeps us from practicing. Is we forget our own experience. We don't learn from our own experiences. We keep doing the same things and expecting something different to happen. Renunciation. Yeah, because renunciation says the whole system is screwed up. Yeah, the whole casino is screwed up. I don't want to go in the casino at all. It's not that the one-armed bandits are liars, and if I play poker, I'm going to win. Or, you know.
To be more precise, it's contentment, to practice contentment.
And to practice, well, it's wisdom that ultimately cuts the root of samsara. Yeah. With renunciation. With looking at your own experience.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to look at our own experience. And what happens when I do certain things? And what happens when I chase certain objects?
You get it now? No.
Yeah. But to really look and how, it's very difficult for us to learn. And that's why even on a basic level, people do things that are harmful to themselves. Because they don't look at their own experience. Yeah? You eat the wrong foods, you get high blood pressure, you feel lousy. What do you do to drown your feelings of lousiness? You eat the same wrong foods again. Yeah? So we're not learning from our experience. Yeah? When I do X, Y, and Z, I feel crummy. And somebody says, well, stop doing X, Y, and Z. But you say, but I like it. And they say, you like feeling crummy? That's the result of it? Well, no, I don't like feeling crummy, but I like doing that activity. So then, what can anybody say to you? Except, good luck. Yeah? But, this is our bad habits, isn't it? Yeah? What do we do with our bad habits? We keep doing the same thing that doesn't make us happy. Yeah?
It's a lot easier to eat the ice cream when I feel sad than to stop and say, what's making me sad? or do you just get sad? Gosh.
Yeah.
And why?
Yeah.
And it becomes like scary.
Yeah.
So can I just eat the ice cream and forget?
Right. And that's what we're trying to do. Forget our experience. Yeah, I feel sad. Let's have some ice cream. Does the ice cream make you feel better? For about 30 seconds. Yeah. And then you go, okay, you know, boy, no wonder I can't fit into my clothes anymore. Yeah. And no wonder the doctor's telling me that I need to lose weight because my blood pressure is too high. But that ice cream's so good. You know the mint chocolate chip one? That's really good, isn't it, Venerable Tarpa? She and I like that one. Yeah, it's about time we had some mint chocolate chip, isn't it? Yeah? 2 years? Oh my goodness, what's happened?
When I go to see my parents.
Oh, that's why you go to see them. And she doesn't even bring any back for us. Dripping on the airplane. So, yeah, I mean, this is us. Isn't it? You know, we want to be happy. And what do? The things that create the cause to be unhappy. Yeah, you want to have a good relationship with somebody. What do? You scream at them when they don't do what you want. That's really going to create a good relationship, isn't it? Yeah? Okay. So this is called self-sabotage, I think. Isn't it? Yeah. So this is one of the kinds of ignorance that keeps us revolving in cyclic existence. Okay, so he says, to relinquish clinging to the three realms, reflect on the defects of cyclic existence. So that's what the next verse is going to talk about. First is the dukkha of pain. So remember, dukkha means like unsatisfactory or... Okay, so the dukkha of pain. Yeah, so this includes the sufferings of the three lower realms. If you contemplate these well, fear will arise. Okay, for if ripened upon you, they are indeed unbearable. Okay, so here, usually the contemplation of the suffering of the three lower realms, usually it's put in with the initial scope. Here it's included more with the medium scope. It certainly belongs there because the lower realms are part of cyclic existence, you know. But if you really think about taking one of those rebirths, it would really be unbearable. Yeah. Now you might say, well, I wouldn't mind being one of the cats at the Abbey. Well, think about it. Yeah. Look into the cat's eyes, and you see this kind of, it's like a glazed look sometimes. It's like there's a living being in there, but the mind can't function properly. Yeah. And so they just curl up and take a nap. Living being, you know, wanting happiness, not wanting suffering. But you tell the cat about precepts, ignores you. You know, it's like there's a living being there, but they can't understand. Yeah. And that's a good life as an animal. What really gets to me is when I go to India, and there's many, many countries that are like this, where they use donkeys for construction and to carry things. So there's the donkeys with these big burlap bags over their side, and the people fill the burlap bags up with stones. So it weighs so much, I mean incredible much, on the back of this donkey. And especially where I usually stay in Dharamsala, it's a hill area. Donkeys have to go uphill carrying that. They have to go downhill where the paths, and they're not walking on asphalt. They're walking on stone paths that are all, forget anything, smooth. And they're going up, they're going down, and they have some human being beating them the whole time to get them to carry the stones. And that's normal life for a donkey. Yeah. No workman's comp, no, L&I. If you break down, they shoot you, they kill you, you're a useless donkey. It's awful. It's awful. And the animal realms are not nearly as bad as the hungry ghost in the hell realms. Yeah. So just, think some about this. And if you have a hard time thinking about the realms per se, think about things that exist in our human world that you can see. Yeah. Think of being a prisoner of war. I don't care if you're in Gitmo or if you're with ISIS, it's kind of all the same, isn't it? You're a prisoner of war, they're going to torture you. There's a lot of people in that situation, or you get arrested and you have no course to a lawyer or, anything like that. Yeah. I mean, you look, we've had all these people in Guantanamo Bay for how many years? We're the country that's supposed to be run by law. So, you think, now what's it like being in a situation like that where you're confined, where you're tortured, where you're belittled and berated? Yeah, where you have zero freedom. Even a regular prison in the U.S. Yeah, people complain, oh, there's such luxury prisons. Well, not exactly. Think of being what they call in the hole. Yeah, you have like a 6x8 room. Yeah, metal bed, metal toilet, metal sink. That's the extent of your furniture. Okay. The toilet is, in a 6x8 room, how far away is the toilet from your head? Okay. No light. No window in the room. Yeah. The light is on all day, all night. Somebody's peeking into the room all the time. They can look and see whatever you're doing. You can't say turn off the light. Yeah, you can't say I'm sick of being in here, I need some exercise. You can't say, it's my day for a shower, but you've ignored it for the last 2 days of showers. And maybe, you just happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. How many people have been put on death row who haven't committed a crime? Spend years on death row. Yeah, so as long as we're under the influence of ignorance and afflictions and karma, we find ourselves in these kind of situations. And, if you really, sometimes it's incredible. You read the newspaper and you think, how would I be if I lived in that situation? Yeah. Like, remember, was it last year, there were 3 women who had been kidnapped when they were teenagers that some guy was holding, in Cleveland, in their house, on a residential street, kind of sexually abusing all of them. Now, if that were you, how would you, do you think you could hold it together very well? Yeah? What would happen to your mind living in that kind of situation? So, and then that's still you're a human being, which is better than being an animal or a hungry ghost or a hell being. So it's good to think about these things, and then think about, well, what kinds of actions, bring rebirth in those realms. And then ask yourself, have I done those actions in this life? Yeah, and you might find you've done some of the actions that bring rebirth in those realms in this life. But even if you haven't in this life, we have beginningless previous lifetimes, and all that karma hasn't disappeared. So what happens if one of those karmas ripen at the time of death and starts running the show and shoves us or attracts us into one of those rebirths? Yeah, do we have the mental strength to really endure it? Yeah, or the physical strength to endure that kind of thing? Or would we just crumble? Yeah. So this is, of course, an extreme example of the dukkha of pain. But in another way, it's not so extreme, because even in our human world, people are experiencing this right this moment. Yeah. I saw a clip on the internet in the New York Times. It was called "Dying Outside the Hospital, Dying of Ebola." Am I saying it rightly? Ebola? And there was a young man, his parents brought him to the hospital. The hospital was completely full. He was lying on the ground, just writhing in misery and moaning. I mean, it was awful just to watch that. And there was nothing anybody could do. And I thought, now what if that were me? If I were having the agony that this young man was in, and his parents were there watching him. Can you imagine being a parent watching your child go through something like that? Yeah, and not be able to do anything. So, it happens here too. So really, giving some thought to this kind of thing, because usually we think, that kind of stuff happens to other people. It doesn't happen to me. But that's what all the other people thought too, until it happened to them. Yeah? Yeah. So, we just don't know. So, think about this. This is gross physical pain, or it could also be considered gross mental pain. When we talk about the dukkha of pain, it's the kind of pain that every living being recognizes as undesirable. Yeah. Everybody sees it as miserable and wants to be free of it. Yeah. The other two kinds of dukkha, the dukkha of change and the dukkha of pervasive conditioning, those things ordinary people don't even recognize as being unsatisfactory. In fact, sometimes they think they're kind of great. Yeah? So it's something to think about. Okay, so first is the dukkha of pain. This includes the suffering of the three lower realms. If you contemplate these well, fear will arise, for if ripened upon you, they are indeed unbearable. Okay? The kind of fear that is arising here is not a panic, freak-out fear. It's a kind of fear where you're aware of danger. You know how sometimes there's a fear that prevents you from being stupid and doing stupid things? Yeah? It's the kind of fear that you try and instill in your kids that they refuse to have. Like it can be dangerous merging on the highway So you need to slow down and you need to look on both sides as you're merging, kind of to make young people aware of the danger of driving and how often they just go, forget it. And off you go, merging, with your foot on the gas and, not looking in the side mirror at all. Okay? So we're trying to, this when it's talking about the fear, it's that kind of fear. A fear that is an awareness of danger that makes us be careful. It's not a fear of like, I could be reborn in the lower realms, I'm freaked out. Because that kind of fear does absolutely no good. That kind of fear from a Dharma viewpoint is a waste of time because you don't do anything except sit there in your state of fear. Yeah, you know what I mean? You can't think, you're just freaked out. So you just sit there and you can't do anything. So this isn't that kind of fear. Okay. Not gathering the virtuous karma that overcomes these and continuing to cultivate the fields of lower realms. Wherever such conduct exists, spit on it. Yeah, he's not mincing words. Okay, so we have this precious human life. We also have karma on our mind stream that could bring about rebirths of incredible pain. We have so much opportunity to practice Dharma, but not gathering the virtuous karma to counteract all that negative karma, yeah, and continuing to cultivate the fields of the lower realms. That means continuing to create negative karma that will bring us rebirth in the lower realms. Yeah. That's dumb, isn't it? That's like wasting our lives. Here you have the chance to prevent something awful from happening. But you're so engaged with what looks so wonderful, and you're so lazy to do anything that you don't feel like doing, that you don't create any virtuous karma and you don't do any purification to, prevent that danger from becoming an actuality. Yeah. Instead, we just kind of sit around and drink tea and eat our mint chocolate chip ice cream, or our pumpkin pie. That one's good too, huh? Or our chocolate chip cookies, or our, whatever our version is. Yeah. Drink your cognac, drink your vodka, drink your beer. Yeah. We continue just to live on automatic, and meanwhile, our life is slipping by. Okay. So, wherever such conduct exists, spit on it. That means be disgusted with it. Yeah. So, this is asking us to really kind of look at ourselves and how am I living my life and am I making wise choices? Because they always say, all sentient beings want happiness. But they live their lives, most people, constantly creating the causes for suffering. Yeah, we want happiness, but we run around creating the causes for suffering. So we want happiness, but to get happiness, we harm others physically, we take their stuff, we sleep around, we lie, we criticize people, we divide friends, we idle talk. We sit around planning how to get other people's stuff, getting totally involved in our malicious intentions about them, propagating our wrong views. And then all of that ripens in unhappiness, and we think, why am I so unhappy? It's not fair. Yeah? But the cause of happiness is virtue. But we don't always know what virtue is, and even if we know what it is, we're often just too lazy to do it. It's like get up in the morning and do a meditative practice every morning. Every morning? I gotta go to work. Can't meditate every morning. Maybe on Saturday. But Saturday we're too exhausted to get up. Or maybe on Sunday. Well, Sunday is, we've got to go do something else. So our practice never gets done. Yeah? So this is the kind of thing we have to look at. How we choose to spend our time. Yeah? And, and how can we, incorporated in this is how can we transform neutral activities into virtuous activities, considering that there's so many neutral activities in our day. Yeah. And if we aren't aware, they can easily become destructive karma, destructive activities. But if we pay attention, we can also transform them into virtuous activities by cultivating a good motivation. Yeah, or by thinking in a different way when we're doing them. Like washing the dishes, cleaning the suffering and three poisonous attitudes from the minds of sentient beings when you're washing the dishes. Same with vacuuming the floor. You're sucking up all the afflictions of sentient beings. Yeah, then cleaning your house can become something virtuous. Yeah, offering your food before you eat, instead of it being a neutral activity or even one that we do with craving, we transform it into something virtuous by offering the food to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Okay, so there's lots of things we can do during the day just to transform daily life activities that are neutral into something virtuous. Okay. Questions or comments? Yeah.
I thought I read in one of your books that in Buddhism there was no hell, but you talked about hell.
Yeah, where did you read this?
I don't know Buddhism
Oh no, yeah. Yeah. The thing is, in Buddhism, none of the realms are eternal. Yeah, you're born there due to the karma, but when that karmic result is exhausted, when that karma is exhausted, then you take another rebirth afterwards. So there's no idea of eternal heaven or eternal hell in Buddhism. Yeah. Yeah, that might be it. Yeah.
What would be a motivation when you're socializing with friends, just hanging out, talking with friends on the phone, to avoid idle chatter, and how would you turn that from a neutral activity to a virtuous activity? You're
Okay.
coffee shop, hanging out with friends.
Okay, what do people think? And talking about the news and sports and whatever. What do you think?
Okay, bye-bye, I have to go to meditate.
You can't go through life avoiding these situations with friends,
Yeah.
I don't see how that is practical.
You can direct the conversation to something else.
I think you need to be with people. It's not being with people for the pleasure of being with people, but you're supporting friends and you're sharing company.
Yeah.
You're being human. I don't think that's so bad, is it?
Yeah. It's something I think where we really have to look at our motivation. Yeah? To really ask ourselves, why do I do this? And also, how much do I do it? Yeah. Buddhism is not saying, you have to go shut yourself in a room and, be meditating all the time. Yeah. But was most of our free time spent socializing? Yeah. And do we give up Dharma opportunities in favor of socializing? Yeah. So just to look a little bit at the role of socializing in our life, what role it plays. And after you socialize, do you come home feeling uplifted and happy and joyful? Or, because of the conversation, come home and you feel like, oh God, Yeah? So it's an interesting thing, I think, just to look at in our own lives. What kind of socializing do we do? For what reason? How do we feel afterwards? What's our mind doing when we're with friends? Because certainly, we're social creatures. We have to be with other living beings. Yeah? And nobody's saying we should just be isolated alone. Yeah? But what does it mean to have, friendships where we help each other create virtue and not virtue? What would that look like? Okay? So, think about it a little bit. Ask yourself some questions. Explore these things.